So as per your request, I have created this video for you guys to learn the content on factoring a trinomial. And so today what we're going to do is we talked a little bit about on Monday at how factoring is the opposite of distributing. And so we know how to take two binomials. And so let's say we have x plus 4 times x minus 3. We learned how to take these two binomials and multiply them together by distributing. So x times x, x squared minus 3x plus 4x and minus 12. Combine those like terms in the middle, plus 1x minus 12. And there we have our trinomial. And so what we're going to do today is we are going to start with the trinomial and work our way backwards to undo that distributing by factoring so that our answer is now written as the two binomials. And so we are going to be working with the form ax squared plus bx plus c. We are going to need to know this form from now until most likely the end of the school year. This is one of those y equals mx plus b type equations. And so today we are going to factor trinomials where a is equal to 1. So there is no coefficient in front of x squared right there because it's an understood 1. Tomorrow we're going to look and see how do we factor though when a does equal 1. So to do this, we need to know this point right here, that factoring a standard trinomial comes down to finding two numbers that are going to multiply to get the last term, and they are going to have to add to get the coefficient of the middle term, which is what b is. B is that middle term. So we want to find the factors of the last number, right? That's what it means to multiply. We want the factors that in turn sum up to get that coefficient of the middle term. So it's going to be very important that we pay attention to what our signs are going to tell us. So in our first example, this is the example that we like because everything's positive. We have two positive numbers. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start finding the factors of that last number. So the factors of 28, what are they? 1 and 28, 2 and 14, and 4 and 7. Now, hint, hint, it is going to be easier for you to list them as pairs. So, right, 1 times 28 is 28. That's a pair. 2 times 14 is 28. That's another pair. 4 times 7 is 28. That's another pair. It's going to be easier for you to list them as pairs and then list them in order. So don't go from 1 to 4 to 2. List them in order 1, 2, 4. Now we're going to go over and see, okay, what is the sum now of each of these pairs of factors that we found? So 1 plus 28 is 29. 2 plus 14 is 16. And 4 plus 7 is 11. And so we want the pair of 4 and 7 because they multiply to equal 28, right? 4 times 7 is 28. And they add 4 plus 7 is 11. And so we're going to write our answer now as two binomials using x plus 4, x plus 7. Again, my signs are positive in my trinomial, so therefore they are going to be positive in my binomial. Now, our second example is a little bit different because notice here, one of them is negative, one of them is positive. And so we still start off by listing the factors of that last number there. So the factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Now, because we need the middle number to be negative, we have to remember our multiplication rules. A positive times a positive is going to equal a positive. A positive times a negative, or a negative times a positive, is going to equal a negative. But a negative times a negative is going to equal a positive number as well. So because my last number is positive, I have two options. Both my factors can either be positive, or both my factors can either be negative. Well, if I need them to add up to a negative number, my only option is that both of them need to be negative. So I'm going to list my pairs now as both being negative. -1, -6, -2, -3. And now we can do what we did last time to get the sum. -1 plus -6 is -7. Oops. -2 plus -3 is -5. And so my pair that I want is -2 and -3, because they multiply to a positive 6. -2 times -3 is a positive 6. And they add to -5. You don't have to do this work that I've done off to the side. I just wanted to show you that that's how this is going to work. So when we write our answer, it's going to be x minus 2, x minus 3. And now just to show you that factoring is the opposite of distributing, I'm just going to do a little work off to the side here, where I'm going to take my two binomials and I'm going to factor them really quickly, or distribute them, I'm sorry. So x times x is x squared, x times -3 is minus 3x, -2 times x, and -2 times -3. Combine like terms there in the middle. That should be a minus. And there we have our trinomial, which is the same one that we started with. Now, our next example involves two negative numbers, negative and a negative. So, just like we talked about, a positive number times a negative number is going to equal a negative number. So I know that at least one of my factors here is going to be negative, right? One of them is going to be negative. Now, if I need them to add, if I need the sum here to also be negative, well, if we think about it, a smaller positive number and a bigger negative number are going to add up to a negative number. And so when I list my factors of 15 here, 1 and 15, 3 and 5, if I want them to add up to a negative number, my bigger number, my bigger factor that I list is going to be negative. And now we can find the sum. 1 plus -15 is -14. 3 plus -5 is -2. And so I want you to go ahead and tell me which pair of factors we want and type in your answer. How would we write our two binomials? So we want 3 and -5. And so our answer, x plus 3, x minus 5. Our next example, our middle number is positive, our last number is negative. And so this same rule right here applies, that a positive times a negative is a negative. So let's just start by listing the factors. 1 and 14, 2 and 7. Now when we think about the sum here needing to be a positive number, a bigger positive number and a smaller negative number is going to add up to a positive number. So if you're having trouble with the concept of positives and negatives adding together, one, you can always use your calculator to help you. But another thing you can do is you can put it in terms of money. Okay, so for example, if I have $20, but I owe someone $10, I have a bigger positive number because I have $20, and I have a smaller negative number. I owe someone $10, and so my answer is I'm still going to be in the positives. I'm still going to have $10 left once I pay that person back. So if I want them to add up to a positive number, then my smaller factor is going to be the one that's negative this time. And so -1 plus 14 is 13. -2 plus 7 is 5. And so the pair that we want, right here, -2 and 7, x minus 2, x plus 7. And that's how we write our answer as two binomials. So these are the 4 different examples. These are the 4 different types that you are going to see. A positive and a positive, a negative and a positive, a negative and a negative, a positive and a negative. So it may be confusing at first. That's why we practice and we practice and we practice. And I'm actually going to walk you guys through, if you turn to the next page, a chart to help us remember our factor signs and what they should be. So when our middle number, right, that's our B, when our middle number is positive and our last number, that's C, is positive, both of my factors are going to be positive, right? Because you know you're going to have 2 factors. Both of them are going to be positive. When my middle number is negative and my last number is positive, well, remember that was this example up here. Middle number negative, last number positive. A negative times a negative is still a positive number. And a negative plus a negative will also be a negative number. So both of my factors are going to be negative. When my middle number is positive and my last number is negative, well, we know that it's going to be a positive and a negative because a positive times a negative is a negative. And so if I then want my answer as adding to be positive, I need my smaller, we're going to make a little note here, we want the smaller factor to be negative. We want a smaller number negative so that my sum is positive. Because remember, the middle number is the sum, the last number is multiply. We're multiplying. You can also say adding. We're multiplying to get the last number, and we're adding to get the middle number. And our last one, when they're both negative, middle number negative, last number negative, this time our bigger number, our bigger factor is going to be negative. And so follow this chart. I want you to follow this chart to do the next 6 examples, 1 through 6. When you're finished 1 through 6, I want you to come show me so that I can check them, or raise your hand and I'll come walk around and check them. And then 7 and 8 is a little bit more difficult in the sense that you need to look for a GCF first.